Hello and welcome to Disability in Screenwriting. This is the fortnightly workshop that takes place on ScriptCamp, and we have another one that also runs fortnightly on WordCamp for prose writers. But this one is for screenwriters, and here we perform sensitivity reading sometimes. We look at existing characters and we build characters together. The latter is the main thing that we do together. This is a slightly um, special session where we will be discussing one condition in particular, and in my opinion, it is the most misunderstood condition, and it is dissociative identity disorder. We'll be going into that today. So as always, let's just tell you a bit about this workshop. Disabilities are amongst the most misrepresented and misunderstood minorities in the media. I was actually reading a statistic today that said that over 1 billion people in the world have some form of disability, making it the largest minority in the world. And disability is the only minority that you can suddenly become a part of. And people from any age, gender, religion, race, or socioeconomic background can be disabled. So yeah, that's why it's the biggest, the biggest minority in the world. And so that means it's really important to represent right in the media, because not doing so can cause a lot of harm. Now we have a number of guidelines and expectations, just to make sure that it's as respectful and friendly as possible. So yeah, be respectful to everyone, and we won't tolerate insults. We welcome all questions, although we do know that some questions can be offensive. So we just ask that you ask them respectfully, essentially. If you want your script read, we ask that you give helpful feedback to another person on the server beforehand, just so that we're making sure that people aren't just using each other. Oh no, other people aren't just using you. We want everyone to be a community. Essentially, we're a family here. This is all done voluntarily, and we're all here to learn and improve. Now, for the purposes of this workshop, there are 5 types of disability: physical, intellectual, hidden disabilities, mental health, and sensory. And again, everyone is welcome, whether you are disabled or not. Yeah. So again, disability in screenwriting for screenwriters meets every other Saturday, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. British. I think I've said everything there. And then next Saturday we will have, at the same time, it will be for prose writers, disability in fiction on WordCamp, our sister server. Now this is a safe space for all of us to talk about all aspects of disability. So we will be discussing sensitive and potentially triggering topics. We will definitely be in this this week, as we'll be talking about trauma in depth to some extent, and we'll be discussing abuse and those sorts of topics. So it will be quite a heavy session this week. So again, as always, if it's getting too heavy for you, then do feel free to leave at any point, because your mental and emotional well-being always take priority over you being here. So no pressure to stay at all. Now then, I think, is that everything for, yeah. Let's go to my next slideshow. So again, if you want to leave at any point during this, you are more than welcome to. And also, as a public disclaimer, I'm not a trained professional. I don't know. Don't have the qualifications. I've just gone through a bunch of sources and things that I've learned over the years about the ID and plurality, and so I can't give you a diagnosis. If you believe that you have this condition, you should speak to a trained professional. Yeah, this is not the place to get treatment or diagnosis or anything like that. Right. Wait, now that I've got all the legal information out of the way, you might have heard of this condition, dissociative identity disorder, it used to be called multiple personality disorder. And if you have heard of it, it's quite likely that you've heard of it from the media. There are a number of shows that have portrayed it generally quite poorly. Um, these films, these films include Split, Primal Fear, Identity, and My Soul to Take. There's another one, Moonlight. But can anyone see any links between these pieces of media?
Are they all villains? Like, are they all portrayed? Like I know in Split, he's not. He's the villain, right?
Yeah,
And I haven't seen all of these, but I think there is this tendency to cast these people in a negative, in a negative context, that they tend to commit acts of violence against others.
yeah,
Is the
100%.
impression? Yeah.
Yeah, so it is that they are almost all horror or thriller films, and these people are more often than not portrayed to be the antagonist or the villain. In Split, he's a kidnapper and pedophile, I think. Primal Fear, I can't remember exactly. I think he might be a murderer, and I've not seen the others. But yeah, these are films where generally they're displayed as the antagonist, as the villain. And they tend to miss out on details and symptoms, and they add fictional issues to add drama. So these issues being the murdering and the raping or whatever they do. Um, so it's if that is your only source of information, and you think that these films, though you might know that these films are fictional, if this is your only source of information, sometimes you might believe that they are real and, everyone with a disorder is a nasty piece of work. And that's not true. So that's a part of why this is a special session, why we want to educate people. So that those films aren't your only source of information. Um, Now it's a very, very complex condition, and we won't go into in-depth Mr. Point here. Yeah, the evil altar is completely fictitious, but stuff like that does cause real-world harm. So I will give you an example. I know of someone who has this condition, and they aren't allowed to talk about it to anyone because they work in a public office, and if people knew that they had this condition, then there'd be a public outcry and they'd be made to leave office because people incorrectly see it as a very dangerous condition, a very one that puts people in danger. That's not true. So yeah, the way that we want to fix this is through educating. Let's talk a bit about some terminology that we'll use here. We have a system which is a collection of alters, and those alters are basically independent identities. They'll have their own age, their own sex, their own their own personality. And then a switch is when one alter takes control of the body. So these alters can come into the front, as it's called. They can take control of the body, so they can, they'll use the body to eat and to, talk to friends or do whatever. So, these alters can go into the inner world, as it's called, like sort of into the brain, and then they can come out into the body. They can front and they can do various things, and basically live their life. Sorry, I've just realised I forgot to read some messages. Elliot says, I think there's relevancy in also portraying the really far gone side of this group of people, but we should also remember that this. What? Sorry, can't read that. But we should remember that this is not the majority. And when it comes to movies, and when it is in movies, it becomes very problematic. Absolutely. There may be some with the condition who do really bad things, but they are absolutely in the minority. And we'll talk about that maybe a bit later. Let's do a bit of myth busting, because it's a heavy topic. I don't want it to feel too much like a class. So let's try and keep it a bit light. We're going to play true or false. So you can unmute or you can type in chat. The first question is, the only symptom of DID is multiple answers. Do we reckon that's true or false?
I would say false.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay.
Can you repeat the question, Joel?
The only symptom of DID is multiple alters.
False.
Okay. Yep, you're right. It is false. There are many other symptoms that we'll look at a bit later. Hi, Gold. Welcome. Next question. Alters can quickly switch to whoever they want, whenever they want. Do you think that's true or false?
I'd go
Gold
with
says
false.
False.
Okay. Cool. You are right, it is false. Next question. Alters can be any age.
True.
That gotta be true.
True.
Cool, everyone's saying true. We seem to have a bit of consensus here. True. I think this is the last question. Not sure. No, it's not. Systems can have more than 100 alters. True or false?
I think it's false. That
Okay.
they can have multiple and there's different amounts, but false.
I would say true. I don't think there's an upwards limiting factor.
Okay.
Yeah, I would tend to side towards true too, but that's overwhelming. That's
Yeah, it sounds like a lot. It's actually true. You can have. I don't think there is an upper limit. I know of some that have over 200. And not all of them do front. So a lot of them will stay inside the brain. And I won't go too in depth, but yeah, there can be a lot more than 100. I think this is our last one. Yeah. True or false? Only 0.002% of the population have DID. What do we think?
True.
sounds quite plausible. Yeah, I would also say
That would mean 1 in 50,000, right? If you move the decimal tens, 1,000, or is it million?
It's kind of so specific of a number that I would say true.
Okay. Well, it's actually false. Do we think it's higher or lower?
Assuming lower.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'm thinking if it's false, I would guess it's higher, but I don't know. Yeah, hard to say.
Yeah, it's a tricky question.
Mm-hmm.
Gold says 1 in 50,000. You think it's lower? It is. It's actually higher. How much higher is the next question? It is more than 1 in 50,000.
Wow.
It's a surprising fact, isn't it?
Yes.
How much higher do we think? Gold thinks it's 1 in 25,000. Anyone want to have any sort of guess?
I'm thinking like maybe like in the 1 in 10,000.
Okay.
I'll take 1/5,000.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So here's a bit of a twist, right? The exact number is not known, and it's for various reasons. Because it can be so misdiagnosed, as various other conditions. But some sources have said that it's actually up to 2%, which is 1 in 50. Which is very interesting, I think. So actually, there's a good chance that you know at least one person with the condition. I know that when I read this statistic, I was very surprised and very skeptical as well. So yeah, the statistic is believed to be somewhere between 1% and 2%. So yeah, it does slightly blow your mind, doesn't it? But actually, you probably do know someone who has the condition. But actually, here's another interesting point. They themselves might not know they have a condition. So I'll let that sink in. Yeah, so what is DID? It's a traumagenic disorder. What that means is it originates from trauma, and it's caused by repeated or long-term childhood trauma. And that trauma might include, or usually includes, child abuse and neglect. And those are the sources or the origins for 90% of those with DID. So it's a traumagenic disorder. Basically, everyone with this disorder has trauma. They're traumatized, they have PTSD. So yeah, everyone with DID has PTSD as well. And it's a very complex disorder with lots of symptoms, which we'll go over today. And like I say, the most well-known symptom is a person with this condition will have multiple alters or multiple identities, multiple personalities, who will take control of the body. That is what the condition is known for, and that is pretty much the only thing that you will see in the media. But the condition is far more than that. Alters can be various ages, genders, and even species. So you might have alters that aren't even human. And we'll go into that a bit later on as well. Some symptoms that you will have include PTSD. PTSD symptoms because again, this is a traumagenic disorder. So you'll have flashbacks, nightmares, emotional numbing, and the inability to regulate your emotions. You'll have 2 or more alters, obviously. You'll have dissociation. Now, dissociation is sort of a the easiest way to describe it is a disconnect from, or your brain disconnecting from the world. There are 2 types of it. So there's depersonalization, which is a sort of disconnect from your brain to your body. So there's a disconnect between the aspects of yourself. So maybe you can't feel your emotions so strongly, or your memories may not feel like your own, or there's a disconnect between you and your senses. So your physical touch might be numb to some extent, or your body might not feel like yours. And then the second type is derealization, which is a disconnect from reality. So maybe you feel like the world isn't real. Or it might be, I don't know if you've ever had this, where you kind of feel like you're dreaming almost. And most people dissociate to some degree. It's a sign of stress. So maybe if you are, I don't know, in front of 20,000 people, for example, and you go, whoa, this is crazy, this feels like a dream. that to some extent is a very low level dissociation, or it can be. So most people will dissociate to some extent, not everyone. And when we talk about dissociation in DID, it's severe. It's quite debilitating sometimes. And amnesia. So this is both short term and long term. So obviously forgetting things. So in the short term, you might not remember what other alters have done. So while you're not fronting. So if another alter were, if I was a system, for example, I'm not to the best of my knowledge, but if I was, for example, and another alter came out, I wouldn't remember, or I probably wouldn't remember what that alter did while they were fronting. I might do, I might not, for various reasons that are too deep to get into right now. And then there's also the long-term amnesia, where you might forget years of your own childhood. So those are the two types of amnesia that you might suffer from. Hearing voices, you might not realize it if you don't know that you're a system. But those voices you hear might be from other alters, which is quite often how most systems come to realize that they are part of a system. That and the amnesia. And intruding emotions and thoughts. So this is called, I forget what it's called now. What's the term? Passive influence. So this is more common than just straight up twitching. This is where you can hear other alters' thoughts, or you can feel their emotions. And this is, as I say, more common than full switches. And so it is mistaken. The idea is mistaken a lot of time for various mood disorders or personality disorders because of these sort of emotions that come from somewhere else, and so they might seem unpredictable or unstable to you. They're actually from a different person entirely. This condition has a lot of comorbidities. Comorbidities being conditions that you're likely to have or are connected to this condition in some way. So obviously we've spoken about PTSD, which almost every system will have to some extent. You might have a personality disorder. Some personality disorders are very closely linked to trauma again. Anxiety, depression, eating disorders, and OCD. Again, all of these pretty much can stem from this trauma that the person has. I'm aware that I'm going very, very quickly, and I'm very sorry for that. It's not my intention. And so if I'm starting to overload you, please feel free to tell me to stop. And if you need anything clarified, unmute and do so now. Okay, if you don't have any questions, I'll try and move on at a slower pace. Because I'm aware that I'm info dumping, just throwing information at you. So yeah, I'm sure you know what all of these are. So yeah, these conditions aren't caused by the DID, but are caused by trauma. Yeah. So some of them can, though it might seem weird to us, they can give you back a sense of control. So that might be the reason why you might have some of these conditions alongside with the DID. Okay, so different alters ultimately exist for different reasons. So different alters will have different roles to play in the system. Welcome, new Pablo. So, for example, there are a number of roles, and it's you sort of, there's no official definition per se. Like, you won't find it in a diagnostic manual, because these things have been, as far as I know, coined by the people actually with the condition, and so different people call them different things, and terms will vary slightly. But most systems, will have a host. This wasn't meant to be displayed like this. There we go. A host, which is the alter who fronts the most. Essentially, they will do most of a body's everyday tasks, eating, bathing, whatever. They will be out. They will front the most. Niga, I hope I'm coming through to you. Okay. Okay. Good. Oh, I've just noticed the PowerPoint's gone. Give me a second. There we go. Hopefully you can see again. Okay, there we go.
Can you hear me, Joel? Am I still here?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. It was my end. My PowerPoint decided to stop broadcasting. Can you hear me still? Yeah, you can hear. Okay, that was weird. My computer does that sometimes. It decides to stop broadcasting. Let me check the stream is okay. Yeah, okay. We seem to be back on track. Yeah. So, I'm not sure where I cut off. So I'll repeat that point again. The host is the author who will front the most and do most of the body's activities. And sometimes is responsible for most things in the daily life. And if you know someone who is part of the system, there's a fair chance you will have met the host. A protector is an alter whose role it is to protect the body, the system, or specific alters. So this might be protection from different forms of threats, whether it's physical, emotional, sexual, or verbal. And so you'll get different kinds of protectors that will each deal with those different forms of threats. And so you might have an alter who, I don't want to say is aggressive, but they might come across that way just because their job is to make sure that you're not hurting anyone. Because remember that these are traumatized people, and so they might seem hostile. They're not doing it to aggravate anyone. It's just in some cases they might be used to this form of treatment or to abuse or to trauma, and so there's a part of them that's always expecting it. That can happen quite a lot. Similarly to protectors, you may have persecutors who, if I had to choose an evil alter, they would probably be a persecutor. Now, I'm not saying that persecutors are evil. I'm not saying that for half a second. But these persecutors are protectors, but they have unhelpful methods of trying to protect the body. So they may damage relationships because, again, remembering that they're traumatized, they're seeing things that they're perceiving things in a way that other people won't. So they might see, might have heard of rejection sensitive. I can't remember what it's called. But if you're rejection sensitive, maybe there's a legitimate reason why you can't meet with someone, but that feels like rejection. And so those sorts of things are things that a persecutor might see, and they usually won't harm other people. They very, very, very rarely will do that. but that harm might be aimed at the self, whether that's at a specific altar or aimed at the body, maybe. And so, yeah, they may appear to be evil, but they're not evil. They're just trying to process the trauma that they've been through in their own way, even if that way isn't profitable or helpful. They're just trying to manage. At the end of the day. So yeah, I would say persecutors are the most misunderstood alters. And then we have, there's a lot more than just these 5. I picked the quote-unquote most important 5, or the 5 that your system is most likely to have. But there'll be other terms that other people use, and other roles that I've not listed here, because I want to try and keep this as much of an overview as possible. The fourth role of an alter is an introject, and these are based off of external people or figures. So they might be, excuse me, they might be based on a real person. So maybe a parental figure or a teacher who's a really kind teacher and gives that encouragement to that child. The brain can internalize that and, almost make a copy of that person so that that alter can give encouragement in times of need. But then you might also have negative introjects. For example, the actual abusers, the people carrying out the trauma, and they may actually do the opposite. They may continue the abuse even, and harm the system that way. And not every system will have an introject, and some will have mostly introjects. It will be different system to system. And the last type that we will look at today is memory holders. And these memory holders, also known as trauma holders, they will hold the memories of specific events, generally trauma, so that other alters don't have to hold that pain. They don't have to feel that pain that they've been through. Basically to allow them to look normal. So that they'll stop the host in some cases from remembering those events, but they don't seem like a traumatized person, because all of this is a defensive mechanism. Essentially, it's to make sure that the brain can manage. And as a child, no one wants to be bullied, but as a child, that's particularly important. And so, usually you'll be bullied for being different. So the host will try and be as normal as possible, and a lot of alters will try and be as normal as possible, and that means that they'll mask so that sometimes not even they will know that they're masking, and so that other people don't figure out and start bullying because of that. And so yeah, these memory holders will have quite possibly the hardest job of being the only one who can remember, some of the worst moments of their life, and keeping it to themselves, so that it's almost a sacrifice in a way, to make sure that other people can cope. I didn't finish that slide, damn it. I'm going to leave that slide there. I didn't fill in the slide. Actually, no, before I do, are there any questions about these roles that we have here? Anything you want me to go into a bit more detail about? Any questions that you have at all? If you would like to unmute, that would be helpful.
I don't have anything to ask or say. I think this has been absolutely incredibly thorough and very well done. Like, this is a lot, and a lot of work has gone into this, and definitely learning a lot of new stuff for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
it
agree.
is.
Yeah.
It is a very, very complex condition. And I'm worried that I haven't done it justice because it is so complex. But at the same time, I wanted this to be an overview, and I was very aware that, you know, ultimately this is about you and the stuff that you want to learn or take from this. Which is why, yeah, I want to hand it over to you. And if there's any questions,
I had one question, Joel, which isn't necessarily related to the slide, but have there been any, I guess, fairer representations in movies or anywhere about this condition that we could reference as well?
Good question. I know that there is one short film that was actually written and filmed by someone with the condition. I cannot remember what that's called though. Let me see if I can find it. But the films that I listed earlier, there was one that wasn't appalling. From what I've heard, all of the films that I shared at the start, they are all bad, except for Moon Knight, which isn't bad. It's not good, but it's not too bad. Considering that it's an action film and it's Marvel. It shows the journey of a host a lot more. So I know it's available on Disney Plus, and it shows I'll forget his name. Steven. He's the host, and he doesn't know he has the disorder, and so it shows a little bit what it's like for the for Steven to figure out that he's not the only one in his brain, and he's sharing his life with someone else. Again, not brilliant representation, but not too bad. I think I found it. I think I found the short film I was talking about. Yeah, I think I have. Okay. I will send a link to this. Yeah, I did hear that it was well received by the community. I'll stop sharing my screen now. Yeah, I had heard that. Yeah, it wasn't appalling, which I think a lot of people were surprised by. Given all the other films that show it, Split, Primal Fear, and the other two that I forget. And yeah, I think there's a long way still to go, but people seem to be caring more about getting representation right. Not just in DID, but across the whole disability, whole disability sector, as it were. Sector is the wrong word, but yeah, the whole disabled community. People seem to really want to be getting it right. Which is it's important because the media is so powerful and can be quite controlling in a way because of because people believe it even if they take things from it that they might not even realize that subconsciously they learn things and they internalize it. And so to some extent we as screenwriters have such an important role because if our work ever gets made, you could end up with the next Frozen that millions of children will watch, or you could end up with Doctor Who, which has a really a massive fan base, one that is incredibly devoted, or Star Wars, and think about how many people will watch those pieces of media, and to some extent they will follow it really closely, and they will take on so much from it. That we have a really important job to do to write it in a way that is represented well, good representation, and really doing our research. Research is a part of writing, and so yeah, it's important that we really do that research and we do it well. And yeah, we know media does really have a massive. It really does affect us, our subconscious. I don't think there's anything else that affects us in such a way. And yeah, that's true. Media does accentuate the negative. I mean, look at the news and how many good things happen, but we never hear about them. We hear about the pain that others are going through and the wars, and we hear about the pain, and our brains naturally focus on negative things. And as Willow says, bad news sells. And so yeah, the media does need to be different. And I think that starts with us to some extent.
I definitely agree with that because like our local news it's like some of the most horrifying things to watch, especially lately in like in my city. Yeah. Probably elsewhere too, I'm guessing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Pretty much, yeah. Like news ratings and watch time and whatnot skyrocket when bad things are happening. But when they report on good things, then it gets very little attention. And thus we see it so much rarely, and it really like it does have an effect when all you hear about is bad stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I did this workshop for the particular benefit of a couple of people who said they were writing stories with characters with this condition. They haven't turned up. I wonder if there's anyone who is writing a story with this condition who maybe wants a bit of help. I'd be happy to help you where I can.
Oh, I'm encouraged to write something now, but after seeing this presentation and it sounds to me like there is a need to represent the condition in a more balanced way.
Absolutely. And I will share the links that I found at my sources, in case any of you want to do your own research. That is not what I wanted. Okay. So those are the 3 sites that I use. The last 2 are essentially textbooks, but they don't go into a lot of detail about some of the things. The first link is an absolutely brilliant site that sort of combines a lot of sources together, and yeah, it's for as it describes itself, made accessible for non-academic audiences, which I absolutely am. And that's where I got most of my information from. It's very comprehensive, very detailed. Yeah. Yeah. I found the ID research very good site. It's got so many pages on so many different aspects. Yeah. I'll tell you a little bit about an idea I had. So I was prompted to do this. I think it was 3 weeks ago. I wanted to do this workshop because, like I say, there were two people who were considering writing a story with a DID character in it. And around the same time, funny enough, I was thinking about it. I was toying around with the idea, and I was thinking actually there are so many aspects, and there's enough drama essentially in having the condition without adding lies. Is the thought that I had. Um, there's from a human perspective, there's a lot of trust issues because of the trauma. There's a lot of paranoia is the wrong word, but fear, and your flashbacks, remembering what's happened. Even learning about your system can be very overwhelming. And I heard someone talking about it earlier. They said that they were scared about researching the condition because they were scared of, realizing that they might have a condition. Because there's a degree of fear in realizing that you're not alone in your own body, that just you don't have true privacy. And so there's enough in the condition in itself to have this really dramatic, really engaging story. So that's why I wanted to do this workshop, just to highlight those, I think.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you. This has been really informative and yeah, inspirational to, giving me some food for thought for future scripts. Yeah.
It's definitely a potential idea. And I would encourage you, because this was only an overview, I would encourage you to find content creators who have a condition. Oh, actually, that reminds me. I will send you a link of someone who does talking about the condition that they have. Where are we? That's one, and the other one is. Oh, I can't think what it's called.
So, I just want to add something. This is definitely something I've always been kind of scared to uh, to, to touch regarding characters and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like this opens up a huge realm of characters and such. Like the one thing that and I think it's the one thing that a lot of minds might go to, or that I've seen, is people trying to write the same kind of thriller or horror thing, but turn out that the person with DID is actually innocent, and that still creates the same that still perpetuates the same problems, is when that kind of stereotype is put into that stereotypical thing that we have seen so much of. So I think like especially the estimate of 1 in 50 people is kind of huge. Like, I mean, yeah, that's a big number, but also that these are just normal people living their normal lives, our neighbors, our friends, and such. And those people, I think we can imagine stories about them. And I think that this brings a really good human element to the characters and kind of opens up the inspiration floodgates. That is not related in any way to crime, suspected crime, horror, murder, violence, kind of thing.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. If 1 in 50 have it, you don't know 1 in 50 murderers or anything like that. That's a very good point, actually.
And it also takes it outside of the like this whole thing takes it outside the realm of like a science fiction-y kind of thing, because that's another place that you usually see some kind of disorder like this would be in a science fiction-y setting. And I feel like that I don't know. This has kind of pulled it out of the. It feels much more normalized now. So thank you.
I agree. The other thing that I thought that struck me is it also opens up this potential to treat other people with more compassion. I mean, the inference is like 1 in 50 people are suffering from this condition, but since it's purely traumagenic, it means that like there are a lot of people who have suffered these traumas, and it's almost like an invitation to be more compassionate to people. Like if we knew the kind of traumas that were affecting people in this way, like it's kind of fractured them, and yeah, I'm thinking, yeah, there's a lot of potential to write stories about being kind and compassionate as well in that context. Does that make sense? Or oh, am I here?
Yeah, you're here. Yeah.
Yeah. It never occurred to me that like I would never have thought that 1 in 50 people suffer from this condition, and
Yeah. It's we have our own ideas. It turns out that we're wrong. Sometimes that can be quite quite of a shock. Yeah.
I have a formatting question, if that relates to this. If one were to want to write about someone with this condition, how would you indicate like who in the system is talking? Do you think something like for the dialogue tag, I think that's what it's called, like the body name and then in parentheses like the alter name, or would
That's
something
a very,
else
very
work
good
better?
question. And it was something that I was thinking of recently. I think when I started writing it, what I did was I included both in the character name. I think I had a colon, sort of the host name, or the name that may go by in the external world, or in quote unquote the real world, the external world, and and then the colon and then the alter's name. I think that's what I did sometimes. I can't see any reason why what you would do wouldn't work. Or maybe you just have the alter. I wonder if I can find a PDF of any of these films.
I think it depends on it would depend on the story and on the alters. So, for example, maybe if an alter only comes up, talks a couple of times, then you would still I think you would still introduce them as a completely unique character because they are a completely unique person, right? So you would still treat them as a unique character, but they would still be played by the same actor. So I would think, like, yeah, maybe if it's a different alter, you introduce them in the action, and then maybe even like I don't know, maybe the character name and then parenthetical as alter. But if it is an alter that is coming back, or multiple alters that are throughout the story or have a fair amount of dialogue, then I think just introducing them at the very beginning as an alter and establishing that rule, and then from then on just refer to them as their character name, even though the actor is performed, the same actor would be doing both. It is a completely new character. That's kind of my thought.
I was also thinking it may depend on how you want to tell the story. How omniscient do you want to make your audience? Maybe you want to take them along for, the ride from the perspective of the protagonist. Maybe they also can't differentiate, like through part of the story, like who's the, like who are, maybe they do perceive all of these people as different characters. Like, it really depends, I think, on how you want to write the story.
Yeah.
Or could.
There's probably not very many DID scripts, but other things you can look at are like body possession type scripts, or even, I don't know, body swap scripts kind of thing. I'm not sure. Let's see. If we take a look.
Does
Seems like
anyone know of any body swap scripts? Because I'm not into that genre. But I could look. I've got a database of scripts that I could look up, maybe.
I think, isn't Me, Myself, and Irene?
I think that actually might be DID.
Or I don't think it's DID. I think it's like two people fuse into one head or something. I don't remember. It's been years. Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know that. I thought it was a body fusion thing.
What about Quantum Leap? Isn't that like the whole series is basically based on body swapping, isn't it?
That is true.
Let's take a look there.
Although we never, like in Quantum Leap, we never actually see who the guy is being. We just see him as the main character interacting with everyone else. We don't really see like him discussing, or like the most he does is like look in a mirror to see what he's supposed to look like.
Yeah, true.
Okay, now you got me thinking about that show, and like, wouldn't people notice their loved one's personality has changed, and how would he get the verbiage right of the location and or speaking with an accent, or people tend to have different mannerisms.
Yeah,
All right,
exactly.
I'm sorry.
But
I'm totally logic bombing that.
So I wasn't sure if you're asking about that movie or in real life. But in real life, sometimes those accents might come out and there's mannerisms. But in real life, there's that masking that each author will do to some extent to pretend that they are the host. And if it's so complicated, if each author does that, then that adds to the not realizing that they are part of the system. In answer to your question on quantum leap, again they appear to use slashes between the character names to distinguish. William, did I understand your question correctly yet? Or did I?
Yeah, I think so. I was just trying to look up scripts, and like I'm not finding a script. I'm just like finding I think people who have written their own script in whatever kind of weird format.
Right.
So can't find anything like actual official.
So there are a couple of Star Trek episodes from the original series, like Turnabout Intruder, and what's the other one? The one where Kirk comes back and he's literally split into his aggressive side and calm side. I'm wondering if those scripts are available, because that, like, is it, like you have like both of these these characters. So one is like a body swapping episode, and the other one is like where the protagonist gets literally split in two by
What was that called?
which it,
That's Star Trek.
Yeah, it was
Star
a Star Trek episode. One of the ones I'm thinking about is called Turnabout Intruder. I'm trying to remember what the other one is. Turnabout Intruder is when this scientist swaps their consciousness into the captain's body, and they basically they swap personalities.
Right.
I think there must be other examples. I don't know how available Star Trek scripts are for reading, but there are other examples.
I think I've got a list of I've got a list of them here. But I'm not seeing more.
Yeah.
One thing I want to say, and kind of going with something Nacho has said, sometimes there aren't really any rules. Like, you don't necessarily have to follow all the perfect rules in writing a script. The only important rule is, well, two rules: clarity and keep the reader reading. Everything else is just kind of cherry on top. It not nearly as important. You must be clear. However you do that, as if the right reader gets confused, or you've lost them, or they can't keep track of the characters, then you have not done a good job.
Yeah.
So the most important thing is clarity. The second important thing is to keep the reader reading. So whichever technique you use, no matter what it is, just make sure it is clear, and you do keep to the same. You keep it consistent throughout. If you introduce it in a particular way, then you use it throughout, and you don't flip flop through multiple techniques, because that will lose the reader.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah. Oh, the other Star Trek episode I was thinking is called "The Enemy Within," Joel. If you wanted to see, like that's the one where he literally gets split into two, and there are actually two of them running around. So.
Okay, I'll look for that.
There was kind of like the aggressive Kirk and then the calm Kirk.
I don't think it's. I can't see it. Yeah, no, have it. Yeah, that's a shame. But yeah, as Willow was saying, I think as long as it's clear, so I would have used a colon. I think to distinguish the system and the alter. But yeah, as long as it's clear, it shouldn't matter too much. All right then. If that's all of the questions regarding the ID, we can open up. But yeah, if there's any other questions, now's the time to ask. All right then. Cool. In that case, we will open it up to. Should we? I was thinking, should we open it up to everyone, or should we do some character analysis of some of the ID characters? Completely impromptu, so I'm not prepared at all. Actually, it's probably best we don't analyze just because we're on YouTube and I don't feel like getting us community violations today. Okay then, let us let's open up the floor to anyone who needs help with their disabled characters, whatever condition that is. We're trying to help.
Yeah, sure. I actually did I revised my script since the last time you guys looked at it, and I could send it for more review if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead and send that in the chat. I will answer Pollock's question. Pollock asks, does having a spirit share your body count as the ID representation? Well, when you phrased it makes me think not. Because remember, DID is more than just having more than one altar. There's a whole bunch of systems that come with it. The dissociation, it's a traumatogenic disorder, so there's PTSD aspect of it. There is, all the other list of symptoms. Amnesia, hearing voices, intruding emotions and thoughts. I matched just some of them. So again, I'd go to, what was the site? theidresearch.org. And there's a page for symptoms. Because that's what other people have done, and that's not good DID representation because they show one aspect of it and forget about all the rest. So yeah, it wouldn't be good DID representation, but it could, I guess, be similar in a script form as Willow says. The way that it would be written in a script would be similar. Alright, let me grab a script that Newt has sent and we will take a look at it.
We could cover just the first part. That was the main area where I changed. I changed quite a few things after we talked. I thought it would be really interesting to have her wake up in her as kind of like a stranger in her own house. So just the idea that like everything's changed and catching up to the changes.
So first thing I will note at looking at the script is the rule of 4. It's it's kind of like an unspoken rule that, well, we're speaking it. Action lines should not be more than 4 lines.
Ooh.
And ideally even less. And you can break it up into multiple groupings.
Okay.
All right, bye, Elliot. Yeah. So
Okay.
you don't want chunks and paragraphs, and lots of white space. So that's just the first thing I saw.
Okay. Where am I?
Cool. Right then, let's read this.
Yeah, I mean, like if there's anything that leaps out, so one of the things I thought would be interesting is that again, I think when we talked about like what would happen if somebody came home and after having a life-altering injury, like how they'd be living differently in their house. So I thought, okay, why don't I have the character waking up in a completely different room and her house hasn't been remodeled, so she has to kind of figure out how to live in the space until they actually come and fix things up. Yeah.
Do you want us to read all of it? I think we've got time to read all of.
I mean,
actually,
if
is anyone else going to want to submit anything? I will let Matt decide whether or not. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, looks like
so I can't really see the screen at this point. Can anybody else see it? Because it's kind of updating. I'm not sure if.
sometimes my Wi-Fi is like that. Let's take a look. You should be able to see it. It might just be a slow connection. My internet's a bit slow. I apologize. Right, we have a character list here.
Yeah, there's let's see, there's 2 reporters, and Ashana and her mom.
Yeah. So who would like to read? I will. If anyone is up for reading direction, I would be thankful.
I can.
Cool, thank you. Are you happy doing direction or?
Yeah, I can do direction.
Cool, thank
That's
you.
the action lines, right?
Yeah.
I've never participated in a table read before.
Okay, yeah. So that is the action lines. It's most of it. Actually, I'll tell you what. I'll be nice since it's your first time. I will give you Ashana.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll take the action lines.
Cool. Thank you, Willow.
Thanks, Willow. I still can't see the screen, so I'm gonna just pull up the like I have my own copy here.
No, that's fine. And you would like Raksha.
Oh, do you want me to take Raksha?
I know. We prefer that the writer doesn't read anything, just that they
Okay.
can ingest it all.
Thanks. Yeah.
Dan, are you up for reading?
Sure.
Cool. Thank you very much. I will give you Aiden. And I will take I didn't give Raksha to anyone yet, did I? I will give myself Raksha. Carla, would you like to read at all? Okay, in that case, I think I can do both. That'd be fine. Alright then. In the chat is the cast list in case you forget who you are, and we will start shortly.
Okay.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
Interior, Ashana's guest room, morning. Focusing briefly on Ashana's right eye, the camera pulls back to an overhead shot of her lying on a cot in her guest room. Her face suddenly screws up into an expression of agony. She throws off her comforter and reaches down to grasp the empty space below her thighs. The stumps of her legs are wrapped in compression bandages. She moves her hands upward until they find the ends of her legs. She massages them slowly, carefully, and sighs in relief as the pain subsides. After lying still for about a minute, Ashana takes a couple of deep breaths. Using her arms, she lifts herself into a seated position and moves herself to the edge of the cot. She then gently hoists herself into the wheelchair beside the cot. Cut to Ashana grabs a bottle of painkillers on a small nearby table and places it in her lap. She wheels herself over to the TV. She picks up the remote control from the TV stand and clicks the power button while pointing it at the monitor. Cut to Aiden Gadling, a reporter from the Cable 90 News channel, appears on the monitor. She is standing in front of a building with a placard that reads, Mercy Street Mission. Was that Dan?
Inside the Mercy Street Mission Food Bank this morning. The mission is reopening for the first time since the devastating truck attack tore a path destruction through its storefront a year ago today. The hate-motivated attack claimed the lives of 5 people and injured 14 others.
Cut to Ashana bites her lip nervously. She takes in a deep breath and exhales. She places the TV remote in a pocket on the side of her wheelchair.
Yep, here we go.
The ribbon-cutting ceremony of the newly renovated facility is scheduled to begin in 3 hours. From 3 hours from now, Mayor Emma Wilson and Eshna Patel will be among those attending the event.
Ashana's eyes well up with tears as a still photograph of Latif appears on the monitor. And she grabs an empty plastic cup from the TV stand and tosses it into her lap.
That's Dan.
Sorry, I keep losing my place. Sorry, I lost my place.
Page 2, Patel.
Patel and her fiance, Latif Atala, were among the volunteers of the mission on the day of the attack. Atala was pronounced dead at the scene. Patel suffered life-altering injuries to her legs.
Ashana's face drops as the image on the TV cuts to footage of the hangman being escorted from the car into the courthouse.
John Campbell was recently convinced of multiple counts stemming from the attack.
Ashana turns away from the TV and wheels herself over to a makeshift vanity in the corner of the room. There is a 2-liter bottle of water sitting next to an empty basin on its counter.
The charges included 5 counts of first-degree murder, 14 counts of attempted murder, and domestic terrorism.
Ashana is noticeably irritated by the reporter's monologue. She takes the plastic cup and the bottle of painkillers out of her lap and places them on the counter. She opens up the water bottle, pours some water into the cup.
Judge Miranda Williams sentenced that 58-year-old restaurateur to life imprisonment without parole for the possibility of parole for 25 years. Islamic community organizations have applauded the judge's ruling, but say that more has to be done to address the rising levels of Islamophobic violence in the city.
Ashana struggles briefly to open the bottle of painkillers.
Campbell's attorneys are appealing the conviction, arguing that he was not criminally responsible for his actions.
Ashana pops a couple of painkillers in her mouth and swallows them down with a gulp of water. As she does, the voice of morning anchor person Jennifer Lang can be heard responding to Aiden's report.
Aiden, is there any sense of what strategy Campbell's legal team intends to pursue? We know from the trial that Campbell became radicalized after the death of his own son, Wyatt, during the pandemic.
It's difficult to say. Campbell's lawyers aren't expected to release any new information until after the petition is filed next Friday.
I think I'll go crazy if I have to hear any more about poor John Campbell and his Twinkie defense.
Ashana grabs the TV remote from the pocket of her wheelchair and swings herself around to face the television. As she does, she accidentally knocks the half-filled cup of water to the floor.
Fuck.
What we do now.
With a click of the remote, Ashana turns off the TV. Cut to POV. Ashana looks down below her stumps where a puddle of water is spreading out under her wheelchair. Cut to Ashana's shoulders slump down as she begins sobbing. After a couple of minutes, she straightens up her back and wipes the tears from her face.
It's okay. You got this. You can do this. Come on.
Ashana looks up at the ceiling.
Hey Google, play Imperfect by Newt.
Playing Imperfect by Newt. As the music begins to play, Ashana removes the grabber-reacher tool strapped to the back of her wheelchair and uses it to grab a towel from the shelf beside her vanity. She uses the tool to mop up the puddle on the floor and is about to finish when she hears a knock at the front door.
Hey, I'm coming. Give me a sec, okay?
Okay.
Interior, Ashana's hallway morning. Ashana wheels herself out into the hallway and toward the front door. She unlatches the lock on the front door and backs away.
It's open.
I think that's Joel.
Sorry, I got lost. Where are we?
Scene 20. Ashana just opens the.
Oh, that's went
yeah.
too far. Okay.
Interior, Ashana's hallway, morning. Ashana wheels herself out into the hallway and toward the front door. She latches the lock on the front door and backs away. Oh, wait, sorry. I'm sorry. Ashana wheels herself into the living room as the front door opens. Interior, Ashana's living room, morning. Ashana's mom, Raksha, enters the living room. She is carrying 2 coffees and a bag of Danishes. Ashana is sitting in her wheelchair next to a coffee table by the living room window.
Hey, love. Are you ready to go?
Not yet. I just got up. I still need to get washed up.
There's still plenty of time. Let's have some coffee and patience first. I got your favorite.
Raksha shakes the bag as she is talking. She places the coffee cups on the coffee table. She pulls out Ashana's Danish, wraps it in a napkin, and places it on the table next to her daughter.
Thanks, Mom.
Ashana looks up toward the ceiling.
Hey, Google, stop music.
The music stops playing. Raksha sits down on the couch. As she turns to face her daughter, she notices a small trail of water leading from the vanity in the guest room.
Hey, what happened over there?
Nothing. I just spilled my cup on the floor.
I don't understand why you don't just come to live with me.
But I am coming to stay with you. 2 whole months starting next week. You know, while they remodel this place for my new Hot Wheels.
Ashana thumps her hands on the rims of her wheels as she completes her sentence.
Ha ha ha. Stop being silly, you know what I mean.
Look, we've already talked about this. I'm disabled, Mom, and I'm going to be disabled for the rest of my life. But I'm also a grown woman, and I need to manage on my own, okay?
Okay. But at least let me wipe up that mess.
Raksha points to the water on the floor.
No, leave it. Manny will come take care of it when he comes to tidy up.
Raksha glances over to the commode that is sitting in the guest room.
So, after the ceremony, you're going back to work there?
Yeah, that's the plan. They added wheelchair access when they rebuilt the place to help me get around.
Are you nervous?
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't understand how they could even ask you to go back there.
I told you before, Mama. It was my idea. They didn't even want to let me go at first, but I...
So why go there? Why invite more trouble in your life? Haven't you been through enough already?
Ashana turns her face toward the window and stares blankly into the sky outside.
Do you know that I still have that dream every night?
The one with the teeth and that vile monster?
Ashana smirks at the venom in Raksha's remark.
Yes, the one with Mr. Campbell.
Raksha bristles at the mention of Campbell's names.
He makes me watch as he pulls everyone into the shadows until I'm the only one left. You know, for the longest time, I couldn't figure out why he just left me all alone like that. But now I get it. He didn't.
Ashana snaps out of her trance and turns to face her mother.
In the end, we're all in this together. Oh, sorry, I need to shake my voice with emotion. In the end, we are all in this together, whether we choose to see it or not. And the only crime we are guilty of is waiting. We wait for the right moment to act, to stand up for each other, but the right moment never comes. We wait for the storm to pass, but it only grows darker and angrier with each passing day, with every kind act we withhold.
Ashana leans in to get closer to her mother.
So I'm done waiting. It's time to bring back the love and the laughter that I want to feel, even if I have to create it for myself. There will be kindness in my world because this is what I choose to bring into it. I won't wait until I'm more able or less afraid. I won't depend on someone else to do it for me. Do you get what I mean?
Raksha leans in to caress Ashana's hand. Her eyes are glistening with her tears as she looks lovingly at her daughter and says,
Yes, I get it. And you know, I'm always here for you. Even when you are so stubborn like you drive me crazy. How did I raise such a brave and kind young daughter?
I had a really good role model. I love you, Mama.
Ashana smiles as she turns to face the window again. The camera fades to white.
I love you too. Alright, thank you everyone. Thanks for doing such a wonderful job in reading. And well done to Lee for shaking your voice with emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah, any feedback for Newt? I mean, there's a we try to differentiate the disability workshop between table reads by focusing on disability, but I mean, we can still give formatting issues. There was a formatting issue that I noticed very clearly, and that was with the scene transitions, the cut twos. You only need them when you are changing scene, not when you're changing shot. So make sure that you know, you can get rid of most of them. In fact, even when you're changing scene, a lot of the time you don't need them because it's generally assumed that you're going to cut to the next scene anyway. So you can get rid of almost all of them. And yeah, as a whole, you shouldn't really be describing the movements of cameras. That should generally be the director's job. But other than that, formatting, I don't think I noticed anything too bad with it. But you should also know that we generally recommend you don't use Studio Binder because they don't allow you to get rid of C numbers. I don't know why the industry is like that. It just is. But yeah, I'm not going to make that an issue because I don't think it's that big an issue. I will instead just say check out the software. Willow's giving out points. I didn't know we were giving out. You know, I was thinking today, I wonder if we should give out points. But Willow is, so that's cool. Yeah, so you can see at the bottom of this list it says, we remove Studio Binder from this list because it does not permit you to write a script without two numbers. Don't ask me why, that's just what we do. But yeah, any feedback for Newt?
How it's a little too wordy. That's pretty much it. How I guess the news dialogue is a little too exposition-y. I think I've read this before though, so I think I've said this before.
Yeah. I tried to cut down on it. Yeah, I mean, like but like you feel it's still not enough, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of like instead of having the news, it should be less about the report itself and how the character feels. Which you did instill a little bit, but it should really drive that home. Once we know the character is upset, it's like the news report is kind of extraneous at that point.
Yeah. Okay. How do I? Well, I guess how would I convey that though? Like in the text, because like my intention was that we're actually really like in a lot of them, like the news reporter isn't the focus. Like when I say voiceover, it's kind of just going on in the background while the action is on the character getting ready. So I mean, how can I more effectively convey the idea that really, like, a lot of what you're seeing in this expositional scene, or it's really more stuff you're hearing, you know, it's as if it's like going on in the background while she's getting ready. So like a lot of the focus is going to be on the character getting ready in the morning, and you know, like dropping that cup of water, and you know, like dealing with how she's going to mop up the mess, you know.
I kind of feel like the timing doesn't quite work. I think I understand what you're going for, but I feel like her actions are so simple and small, and the dialogue is so much that, I mean, how long does it take to open up a pill bottle? Like probably the length of maybe only a couple words, not an entire paragraph.
Mm.
And the focus ends up not being, because there is kind of so little of the actual action towards these, to all of the newscasting. That's where the focus ends up going.
Okay.
So,
Okay, so I'd have to add more action to kind of counterbalance the you know, like what's actually being said, or reduce that even more, like what they're saying in the newscast.
reduce it, or I'm trying to think of some way you can explain all this without having any of the newscast. Like, we don't need to know about the event and about the boyfriend, or we don't need to know about Latif to understand Ashana's trauma and to understand what her difficulty. I do love the sorry, I'm sorry, Dan, you were going. I'm sorry, I interrupted. Dan, sorry. Go back.
Dan?
Sorry, Dan, you were talking and I kind of took over. So please continue. I'll take a turn later.
Oh. Did we lose Dan?
I'm not sure that he's there. I think just continue with it.
All right. Oh, okay. I think we can find a way that we can talk about what happened to her and get rid of pretty much all of the reporting and focus solely on her struggles. We don't need to know why someone is struggling to know that they are struggling. And the one thing I'd like is to actually, rather than this whole bit at the end of her talking about her hopefulness, is to actually see her going to this place. And that, in the end, is maybe where we understand what happened, or she talks about it, or she has flashes of it. Showcase the difficulty of getting ready in the house. And yeah, I thought the dropping of the pill, of the cup of water, was great. And I like the interaction between mother and daughter. I like the story itself. I just think it's very heavy on expositional.
Yeah, that part in particular. Yeah.
Right. So it feels like it is this doesn't feel like it is about her and her struggles. It feels like it is more about the attack. The newscaster, it's all about that. Her and her mother are talking about it, and it takes it takes attention away from her dealing with the new disability and puts it on, well, this is about terrorism, domestic terrorism kind of thing. Or
well, in fact, the piece really like originally came out of this idea of like about not allowing oneself to be controlled by fear. So it really was, you know, it was really initially sparked by the idea about I wouldn't say domestic terrorism, but really just about this tendency for people to use fear to manipulate others.
understood. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was just like and really so Ishana's character, the way I see her is a lot like you know, like Andrea Magalhaes, right? I don't know if you saw the interview that she gave after her son was murdered at Kiel, but you know, like that's really more towards, you know, like where I see this character. You know, like instead of being angry and, you know, at a time where you would expect somebody to be, you know, angry and overwhelmed and wanting to withdraw, this woman went out and advocated for better, you know, mental health care for the person who murdered her son. And you know, this is really who I see Ishana being, you know, like I'm portraying it, you know, through this lens of her having this you know, this trauma and this life-altering injury, but essentially it's that kind of story where, you know, somebody recognizes, or this character recognizes, that it's really important to get back to being kind and compassionate and not withdrawing, especially in a time when it's the most difficult.
I love that. I love that storyline. I don't feel like that's quite what you have. So I think the big thing, the number one thing, is what you described of this other woman. She was doing something. She was advocating. She was out there, be it in front of cameras or whatever, advocating for this. So we need to see Ishana doing something, not just talking about it. We need to see her going to the place where it happened. We need to see her not talking about it, but actually going and doing.
Yeah. Okay.
So like setting up, especially if it is about overcoming the fear or conquering the fear, the beginning would be setting up what her fear is.
Oh, that's the whole front end of the whole front end of the film. So this is a short to answer your question, and the whole part, the like everything leading up is this kind of it's this surreal dream sequence, this PTSD type dream sequence where all, like, part of the reason for the exposition also is explaining that the characters that she sees in the dream are actually different, you know, from the characters in real life. So that's part of the reason why I introduce all of these characters like Latif and John Campbell, because they actually manifest in her dream in different ways. So
a dream sounds a lot better than a newscast. The dream is much more close and personal, and I love the imagery of like her being in the darkness and kind of being pulled into the darkness by Campbell.
Mm-hmm.
But he's no longer a threat. He is not there anymore.
Right.
So okay. So big shocker here. Yes. So I have been through a mass shooting. I was not actually there. It was my workplace, and 6 of my coworkers died. And so I saw the aftermath of these kinds of events. For one, it brings people together. The fear wasn't that the shooter would come back. There was fears of like ghosts. There was ghosts. People were too traumatized to enter the building, and they transferred out to other locations. There was fear of ghosts in the bathroom, particularly where the shooter killed themselves. There was a lot of people who refused to talk about it, who didn't want to hear anything and just kind of stuck their fingers in, and because they felt like talking about it would glorify the shooter. These are very common reactions that that I saw. Some wanted to talk about it nonstop. Others didn't want to talk about it at all. So I think centering on what her fear is would be a huge help. There was there was actually one of my friends. The shooter tried to shoot her, but ran out of bullets and reloaded her gun. And that friend of mine basically trapped herself in a room for a couple months. She could not come out. She was the only person who was attacked and survived. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be getting so heavy. I'm sorry. It's just we need to see Ashana's fear. We need to know what exactly she fears so that we can see her overcoming and going beyond it.
Oh, it's earlier in the you do, because the hangman actually talks to her, and I mean her fear is realized earlier. Well, just before she wakes up. In fact, that scene where she opens her eye is the culmination of this nightmare where her fear is represented, and essentially her fear is being left alone and afraid, and being completely isolated, and that that's essentially what's revealed right before.
Okay, so like this is the second half of it?
Yeah, well, it's the larger part, because like the first part is, as much as there's maybe too much talking here, there's almost no talking in the earlier part, because it's really kind of like it's a dream sequence montage, and there's a lot of action and much less dialogue in the beginning. So even though it took like reams and reams of pages to describe all the various scenes that occur, because it's a dream sequence, and so there's things go flashing by, and there is some dialogue, but not as much as you're seeing here, so
Okay,
yeah.
I didn't This is like half of it, and there was a bunch before.
Oh,
All right.
yeah.
All right. So, okay, I got the context now. Thank you.
24 pages of script actually is entirely what it, the entire script.
Okay, so something on a kind of formatting thing I'll mention, quick formatting, is the names only need to be capitalized when they are being first introduced, the very first time in the action line. After that, it's just regular name.
Okay.
All right, okay, that's all. Anyone else want to go? Sorry.
I wanted to ask you, so there were, I didn't quite hear everything that Joel was saying earlier, because I think he was cutting out about the formatting. There were things like I can remove a lot of the cut tos, I heard, and then I think there was something that you mentioned, Joel, about the numbering. So
C numbering. So for whatever reason, it's not industry standard to have C numbers. And I don't understand why people in NA or in the industry are so tight about their rules. But that is one of the rules that you can't break. And so I sent a list of screenwriting software that you can use instead of Studio Binder. I personally would recommend Try to Duet, which is free, but there's a bunch of others that you can use to, rather than using Studio Binder.
Okay. Going to
there's quite a few formatting things that I think a different software would help with, like the names being on separate lines. Like you have a name, page cut, and then dialogue.
I hated that. I apologize. Yes, I agree.
At least most that I've seen, software that I've seen automatically kicks that down to the next page. So that is a software thing.
Yes, entirely.
And we don't need any kind of cut to, just because we already know. It's kind of unspoken that it's what we're seeing.
That's the default, yeah.
Okay. And then, so aside from breaking up that one really blocky action sequence, then I can easily break it up, so everything, like in terms of the action sequences, it looks like it's a bit more like the 4 lines that you were recommending, Willow, I think, right? I think it's just that first one that was really problematic. Is that correct, or?
I like the first one is problematic, and there's a few other long ones. Honestly, this just comes to kind of perfecting your writing, or being able to condense your writing, saying the same exact thing in fewer words. And that kind of just comes with experience.
Yeah. It's my first one. And so just so you know, we are making this film. So it's, we're actually, it's something we've scheduled for this summer. So, yeah.
Okay. Something to mention on that. If you are making it yourself, then formatting does not matter. The formatting is more important for other people to read it. If you already understand it and it works for you, and it is strictly for yourself or your team or whatnot, then you can have whatever kind of formatting you want.
Okay.
It's just not industry standard.
No, yeah. Okay. Well, thanks. Actually, I think I'll have to take up more of these workshops and just get better at the craft. Yeah.
But
yeah.
I love the story and the theme. I love that. I want to see more. I want to see her do more.
Yeah.
Even if it's more struggling in her home, I want to see more of her doing, not just talking about it.
Yeah. Okay. More.
Does anybody else have anything they want to add or say?
Well, thanks, Willow. I really appreciate the feedback. Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks.
Wait, I feel like, is there an echo or is there someone talking? Or is that just me echoing or something?
No, I don't hear an echo.
Oh, I feel like I've heard someone else chime in and then stop. I don't know. In any case, yeah, I do hope that you bring this back because I love seeing how things progress and definitely as your skills improve.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, can I? Are there other like, can I bring this to a table read and?
Yeah. Well, there's table read Sunday. Sundays it's 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And you can submit 5 pages to be read. Or if you wanted an entire thing read, it's 100 script coins. They'll read all of the whole thing. But yeah, you can bring 5 pages at a time. Let me see if I can. Joel might be better at this to get you a link to submit for that. So that's the table reads. There are also a few other workshops. Oh, there's also a script swap. I believe where you swap scenes with another person and they give you feedback and you give them feedback on theirs.
Okay.
That is, I think, Tuesday or Wednesday. Yeah, in the mornings. You're in Canada, right? So that'd still be morning time.
Yeah.
I think. Oh, it could be afternoon for you. I don't know. Are you East Coast or West Coast?
I'm East.
You're East. All right, so that might be like afternoon.
Sounds like it's
Hey,
about
Joel.
Oh wait, I don't actually know what to talk about. I just realised. Hello. I hope that feedback helped you, Newt.
Oh, very good. I had a question about these coins though, because I noticed there's something about coins like in the chat, and you mentioned it just now, and I don't know what this is. So
okay, so we have a currency on the server called. Oh, we got 2 messages, 2 big messages. We both typed separate commands as if it was planned. We have a currency here on the server called Script Coins, and basically you can spend them to collect cool things. So if you get 100 of them, you can submit a whole feature to table reads, which happens on Sundays, and get feedback there. So it's a bit like what we did here, but more people come and you get more feedback. But yeah, that's one of our cooler things. You can also get so Willow types of store down here, types of command down here. So you can buy VIP membership for a month. You can get a mouse pad. You can get flip flops. You can get really cool things. If you collect enough of them, and we give them out pretty. We give them out a lot. So yeah, if you're active enough on the server, if you take part in contests and you win, if you give feedback to other people in the feedback channel, there's lots of ways you can earn coins. So yeah, that's basically just how we say thank you. And thank you. On that note, I will thank you all for coming. I think we're going to finish up there. But yeah, I hope I didn't come across as too info dumpy today. It is a topic that I can talk for ages about, and is a very complicated topic, and therefore quite hard to simplify and do it justice at the same time. So I'm glad you found it helpful. As always, you will be able. We'll be back next week. We will be on WordCamp, which is our prose writing server. I will send the link there. Make sure to join us, and we took it's much the same thing. Just rather than focusing on screenwriting, we focus on all forms of media, particularly novels. But we have also been known to look at comics and other media formats. So you're more than welcome there. And then we'll be back on ScriptCamp in 2 weeks' time, again, same time, Saturday, 4 p.m. British, 11 a.m. Eastern, and 8 p.m. Pacific. And yeah, hope to see you there. Thank you very much for coming, everyone.
Thanks, Joel.
Have a wonderful day.
Yeah, you too.